Thank you, everyone, for deciding to join us for this wonderful session. I am here to interview and speak with Dr. Dinard, who is a licensed clinical psychologist, adjunct at university professor and psychotherapist, and forensic examiner, substance abuse specialist, certified hypnotherapist, yoga instructor, author, musician, filmmaker, educational consultant, and restaurant owner. Whew, man, I tell you, he has done practically everything that you can think of doing in order to be a phenomenal servant leader in our community. He's also the program director and co-founder of a mental health community center in Florida, and he has been consulted by news media for several different issues relevant to the Black community in America, and has been quoted in Ebony magazine, Ebony Man, Jet magazine, Journey magazine, Quest magazine, USA Today, and many, many news articles. He has operated a three, he has operated three live talk radio shows along with his wife, and has appeared on national television programs such as CNN News and BET and other local programs such as Your Voice at WFSU TV, and as the guest psychologist on Agenda, the monthly talk show that is hosted by his lovely wife, Dr. Dinard, Sharon Dinard. And Dr. Dinard is a past president of the National Association of Black Psychologists. Now, the reason I first got to be aware of Dr. Dinard is that many years ago, we were looking for a place to live and we found about Tallahassee. And what made us really interested in Tallahassee, Florida, was the fact that there was this phenomenal school there that was being run by none other than Dr. Dinard and his wonderful, illustrious wife. So, before we go any further, Dr. Dinard, can you tell us a little bit more about what was so unique about this school that the two of you created?
Well, as quickly as I can, I would say there were several factors that made that school very successful. By the way, we ran the school for 17 years, and my children went from pre K, age 3, basically, all the way up to ninth grade in my school before they went on to any other school. And I wanted to do that because as a psychologist, I was out in all these school systems. I've been out to school systems in 14 different counties and here in North Florida as a clinical supervisor of graduate students who were studying psychology and social work and speech pathology, et cetera. I was at a multidisciplinary center. And so I would have to be involved in all these cases. And so with the black children especially, I just noticed there's just a lot of problems in the school system. And frankly, I committed myself before I even had children, I would never send my children to public school. And so that's the beginning of the inspiration. Now, my mother was also a decorated teacher. All of my family, I came from a family of teachers. And if you could believe it, I convinced myself at the age of 16 that teachers worked too hard, they never had any free time, and that I would never, never, ever, ever be a teacher. And I was wrong. And so I tell you that part too, that you understand that for me, the work that I've been doing, and even the school, it's really an ancestral DNA progression, and I'm just one of the people who's taken what has come before me and expounded on that. And in fact, my mother was a big part of the program development. Initially, she was still living, and again, she knew a lot more about teaching than I did, and so she was very involved in helping us to develop curricula and think about how we might want to approach teaching certain subjects. With that being said, we also had two experiences independently that also contributed to how we approached the school that made the school really, really different. The first one came from one of my students, undergraduate students, put me in touch with a guy up in Atlanta,
Mhm.
and he was teaching a very peculiar math program, but it was dynamite. And the way way I was exposed to it was his name was Alfonso Carey. Excuse me, we called it Carey method, and he was a high school dropout who had stumbled upon his method, right? And then he taught children how to do math way better than the public school, right? And so, to give you an idea of how different, so you'll understand, it's hard to describe, but I have video, of course. But say, for example, my preschoolers learned all of their timetables right up front while they were learning number placement, number value, they were also learning, memorizing all the timetables up to 13. They were also memorizing perfect squares and perfect cubes, even though they didn't know what that meant yet.
Mhm.
Now, a year later, I can take them straight to algebra because they've already got that information encoded as they're learning the value of numbers. So, our method, first of all, we were doing things very different in public school. One, two, we demonstrated beyond a shadow of a doubt that children were way ahead of us. They were way more capable of encoding information than anybody ever dreamed of, just because we were following this old traditional model, that came out of Jean Piaget's developmental theories, which you've already demonstrated, that they're not even accurate and definitely not for Black people. And so that's the other part of this. This was an African centered idea, not just curriculum, but the idea that what is it that we as a people need to be learning, and what is an education for children who are growing up in a society that is hostile towards us as human beings. That's a very different type of education. And who am I now, the captured people, displaced, ripped of so many cultural inheritances that we are disconnected from? Who am I now? And what am I supposed to do at this point? One of my favorite songs by a group out of Atlanta, it's called Broken Branches, and the line that says, well, what do we do with the leaves of trees, of broken branches? You know, that how do we proceed as a tree, you see? And so that's a big part of it, is the idea, and then the experiences, both negative and positive. Negative side was public school. I still call it the killing field. So many dreams, so many possibilities of children, especially Black children, get killed off before they ever even have a chance to realize, oh, there's a wonderful world to get involved in. They're bitter about education. They're bitter about math. They're bitter about homework. They're bitter about the idea of I can't do this, whatever, before they even have a chance to know that they're capable of all of it. So that's the first thing. So we had different techniques. So this math program was essential. It was very important because it helped eliminate a lot of those frustrations that other children are experiencing just because the teaching method is not that good. And so, not that it doesn't necessarily work, but it's just not as good as it could be, obviously. And we demonstrated that. So my children, we would also do standardized testing. We'd use the standardized testing method and send our scores off and let somebody else score them, so they'd be completely free from us. And my children came back in the 99th percentile. It didn't matter what family they came from. Didn't matter whether they were labeled in school or not. We didn't use labels. We had no need for that, right? Because the point is it that the child has a learning disability, or is it that we don't know how to teach that child? And we want to blame the child and say, well, you can't learn, instead of like, I can't learn how to teach you, you see, because I'm just so rigid in this one, got to do it this way. So that was the first thing. Second thing was my mother introduced me to a reading program that a Black woman had created way back in the 60s, which is a whole reading program. Again, something very different from the way that we would do it in public school. For example, just like I was telling you about math, instead of doing first grade, second grade, third grade, okay, fourth grade, now we're finally trying to combine all these concepts. No, because the biggest issue in math is timetables. Placement, and then you know the meaning of these numbers, value, and then you also have memorized timetables. Now you can go anywhere, you see? So if you get that up front, you don't have to know all that. You just have to have it in your brain usable later. See, same thing with learning to read and write. Same thing. So while in the school system, they're teaching A, B, C, D, and they had a little song to go with it. And then next, you're going to learn how to put a couple of letters together and then call them words. And then you learn the big words and the little words. And no, we didn't do any of that. So we taught our children um, all the letters. So while they're learning their ABC, at the same time, while they're learning the ABCs, they're also learning about sounds. At the same time, they're learning about vowels. At the same time, and they're learning about words, both in the way words look on paper, what they call sight reading today, but also phonetically, how words come together, and also what we would call prefixes and suffixes. So, for example, I could tell a 3-year-old if it says TION, just say shun, because that's if it says PRE, that's pre, right? So I'm not teaching this or that. I'm teaching all of this collectively at the same time, so that at first it's like just different pieces of information that's coming in, but eventually, and the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to say this word, let's see how this word phonetically through these stems and these prefixes, how does this go together? And they're going to be able to say table quick. All right. So we're teaching words like table, chair, food, yes. But we also have some other words over here that you wouldn't give to normally to a preschooler, let alone wouldn't even give to maybe even a second grader. Maybe that's a word more like encyclopedia. And say, well, you can break this word down just because it's got 6 parts rather than 2 parts. That don't make it any more difficult. What? And so one thing we did too is early on we exposed children to words to learn that are both long and considered big words versus simple words like it. They learn both at the same time. So no word is considered an easy word or a difficult word. None. Also, we're having them to actually memorize the word and the spelling of the word also. So table is Table. Use flashcards. That whole word, whenever you see it, boom, you know that's table. Okay, if you can't remember when I see it, can you sound it out? Of course you can. Can you break it down into its part? Of course you can. So between those different approaches, words now become fairly easy to figure out, and it doesn't take long for the child to actually be able to break it down phonetically and also recognize it through sight pretty early on because all of these are coming at the same time. And so my first graders are reading on 5th, 6th grade level quick. Of course, when they're being tested, they're coming in 99th percentile. Why? Because they're several grades ahead of public school in their skills. So that's the skill issue. But there's still the sociological level, and then there is the other information that normally would not come into a school system. So, for example, all this argument they're having here about whether they're going to teach race and race theory and all that, I ain't got to worry about that in private school. So I taught my children everything. Let me talk about the history of Black people way before the United States. Let's go all the way back to the beginning. Did you know that Black people are 400,000 years old?
Wow.
So I said, well, how old are you? I'm 3. No, you're not. No, you're not. You've been here 3 years. No, you're actually 400,000 years old. Wow, really? Okay. Another thing we would do, see, I'm a hypnotherapist and I understand language and the power of language and the subconscious especially. We don't understand this because we're not really taught about what is a human being. Not how do you look, but what is the function of a human being? And especially what separates human beings from other beings often is our ability to do hypothesis testing. But we have to have memory to do that. We have to have identification and language and all this has to work together, right? And so we know this, but to study it, to understand how powerful the subconscious mind is and how the brain works, with the subconscious mind, and that the mind and the brain are not the same thing, no matter what these Western scientists think they're talking about. Having had out of body experiences early on, I learned that the brain and the mind are not the same. Because when I'm out of my body, my mind is working fine, going, oh my God, I'm out. I'm freaking out like I might die. I'm going through all that. I got my emotions and my mind working fine, and I'm looking at my body on the floor. So I learned early on, no, your brain is not your mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's an information decoding, encoding and decoding system, yes, and it is loyal to the mind, but it is not the mind. Okay, if you understand that. So with the children, we would indoctrinate them intentionally up front. We would say, you guys are all little geniuses. You know what a genius is, don't you? Huh? I don't know. I never heard of that. Say, well, geniuses are very, very smart people. That's a very simple intervention. And sometime during the day, you might stop and say, all right, my little geniuses. And when I say geniuses, I say geniuses are what? Geniuses are very, very smart people. That's right. And therefore, no matter how tough it seems,
Mm-hmm.
geniuses always are able to figure it out. Geniuses already, we can figure it out. Okay, so now when they come to a problem, they're not feeling inferior because they don't have the answer. They're feeling motivated. I must find the answer. It's a very different orientation. Also, all geniuses are different and they're at different places. And they have different superpowers. And so, therefore, you need to help your friends figure out their superpowers. Now, if I got a problem, I can go to my buddies. I don't feel inferior. I don't feel like I have to know everything to get to know something. So then here's the social reality of my school, that we all help each other. We never talk down about each other because we all know everybody in here is top notch. So we don't allow the language that y'all hear on the street. Oh, we don't use that language up in here. Oh, wait a minute. No, you don't talk to your friend, your neighbor, your peers with that type of language. It just simply is just not allowed. I would have children come from the public school. Wow. And you know what I would say to them a lot of times? I would say, like, especially the males, because I'm a male, so I know I can talk to them in a certain way. Male style. Say, yo, bro, what you doing?
Mm-hmm.
What? I say, wait, hold up, bro. Look around. Let's look all around here. You look around. I say, now, do you see any white people in here? No, sir. Okay, well, that should let you know we don't tolerate that kind of nonsense in here. Yes, sir. They know exactly what I mean. They already have the social intelligence to know, wait a minute, I can get away with a lot of stuff in public school, not here. Simply not tolerate. It's just simply defining the boundaries so this child can figure out, how do I fit into this particular ecosystem? Because it's all about an ecosystem. Problem solving. First thing every morning, what's different about my school? Preparation for learning. First thing we do, we all meet in a circle. So at one point I had 64 children in my school. All right, all from pre-K all the way to ninth grade, they all meet, they start the day together. All of us together. Okay, we go outside. We're outside. Unless it's really cold, we're outside. Okay, we start in a circle. We have a theme song. And our theme song was Something So Strong Inside by Labi Siffre. They have to sing that every day. We do the African pledge every day. We have affirmations that we do every single day. We do yoga postures every single day. We have a few moments of meditation every single day. This is how this 40 minutes of preparation before we start the first academic program. We talk about, I found out, for example, with children, we would give them proverbs every single day. The proverb for today is, and we would have it, and then we would ask them, all remember, all ages together, what do you think that our ancestors were trying to say by this? So that we wouldn't have to say, don't remember, behind every moment there's something you can't see, or nothing is as it appears. You could say those things, but that doesn't have the same meaning as, tell me what is the meaning behind these words, this concept. And the children started to incorporate that. And we'd have a famous and not so famous quote. Now we're introducing people that they need to know about, that they never heard of. They're not going to be on TV. They're probably not going to hear about it even in their families. You know, if it says right here, if Fannie Lou Hamer said, they never heard any Fannie Lou Hamer. Okay, but what did she say? Well, she said, okay, over time they are incorporating. First of all, there are a whole lot of people that had a lot of good things to say. You need to listen to them. Don't just write them off because you don't know them, right? And then the 12-year-olds got to listen to the 5-year-old break it down. All right, 5-year-old, what do you think that meant? Maybe so and so and so. Okay. 10-year-old, what do you think? Okay, 12-year-old, what do you think? Maybe the 12-year-old really gets it better than the 5-year-old. 5-year-old gets to hear what the 12-year-old has to say. 12-year-old gets to hear what the 5-year-old has to say. It teaches respect beyond age, respect for wisdom and beauty rather than appearance. I might say that often, but the point is it has to be demonstrated, it has to be lived. And that was what was different about our school. And people, my children, sometimes they'd be on these news shows and they'd be showing out and people are like, oh my God, how do you get these kids to do it? And I'm like, it's not one thing. It's a whole system, and a part of any school system is socialization. And you can't teach children who are undisciplined and unattentive and fighting you because they're under stress or because they've been involved in a whole lot of domestic violence and nobody's going to address that part, or their parents really are not capable of supplying that back that you were hoping those parents could supply. Maybe they're not capable of that. Somebody's got to fill in, you see. And so, but oftentimes the environment itself can be the buffer for a lot of these issues that our people are going through. But they all have to be addressed. We all have to go at it and say, what's happening with this child today? And I heard last week, this and that. I had one year, I had a first thing in the morning, the child comes in, the two girls with different ages, they come in, and the father had come and shot the new surrogate parent at the house. That's how those children's day started. And then we, as a whole community in school, we had to deal with that. So, I mean, there are things that happen that we can't just proceed as if, like these aren't real events that really shake up the psychology and the spiritual vibration of people, you see. And so that's what made it different, all of those things. But those are the kind of like the key points, I would say. Right. And I would teach history, and I teach every level: graduate school, undergraduate school, and when I would go around and do lectures at these high schools, February was a hot month because everybody's ready to hear something all of a sudden, and I would teach my 5-year-olds the same way I would teach my college students.
So now,
The same way.
one of the things that we emphasize in It Takes a Village Ministry is the idea of pulling together community, creating community in
Mhm.
many instances. And my question is, what do you feel is the biggest challenge to creating a community school and maintaining a community school? Because one of the blessings of the excitement of COVID is that people are now starting to reconsider their
Right.
children being in public schools, and they're
Right.
interested in either homeschooling or creating little pods. But I want to hear from you as an elder, as a veteran who has done this, to know what are the things that we need to look out for that are going to be challenging. And most importantly, what are the things that we can do to circumvent those challenges when they arise?
That's a long list. Um, and it is the other side of the story
Mm,
that when you say community, you mean how do you get people to buy into and commit to
yes.
an egalitarian relationship where they're being fed, they are aware that they're being fed, and they're willing to work within that situation and system
Mm,
so that others can be fed also.
yes.
That is in dire contrast to the cultural situation out here. So a part of the issue is you're trying to create a different culture. If you talk about community,
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to create a different culture. And you're also trying to create a culture that has a different value system than the value system that people generally are working on, which is the value system of individualism
Mm-hmm.
and materialism. So the first issue, and all other issues really stem from that, is that it's sort of like saying, well, how do you push a car uphill? It can be done, but you need more than one hand. And people better be ready to dig in.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because you will have people on the sideline yelling at you, you can't do it, right? Or you will have people, five people be pushing the car uphill, they'll be arguing about, should we use our right foot or our left foot to do this? No car pushed yet, right? One of my one of my experiences of in all these organizations I've been in, and no matter where I go for consultation and solve problem solving,
Mm-hmm.
the two primary issues. This is what I mean. Getting back to understanding being a human being first. Oppressed, traumatized people are forced to respond to their emotions first. It is just a natural human experience. Furthermore, trauma causes disconnect between emotions and thinking. So there's so much focus on emotions, it's almost hard to think.
Yes.
Now, both thinking and emotions are required for success, but then wisdom is putting it all together. People don't have wisdom as their main value. So you're dealing with a situation where people have been trained to self destruct. And it's sitting, living, operating out of the nervous system, the brain is oriented now to be totally loyal to self destruct. So that when you try to come and now we're going to heal and come together, people may be very, very sincere in terms of their desire and understanding that this has to happen. And then the self destruct patterns just kick off. There's no way around it.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to happen. And then you have to work it through. I can remember just crazy meetings sometimes with my parents and having almost like two sets of parents. The parents who were ready to go and understood the game's got to look different, and the parents who were ready to go but they didn't understand and the game had to look different. And they would say, well, why y'all doing this? And I'm like, well, I know that doesn't look like public school. It doesn't look like anything you've ever seen. For example, we use drama a lot as a method, as a teaching method. So if we're going to have drama where we integrate everything that we're doing, academics, history, social reality, all this, we merging it all together. So I'm not just going to talk to you about, Martin Luther King or Malcolm X and or Malcolm X or Fannie Lou Hamer. We're going to have a play about it. And who's going to play Martin? And who's going to play Malcolm? Who's going to play Fannie Lou Hamer? And who's going to play J. Edgar Hoover? And who's going to, and then we're going to make up a play where you act this thing out. So that now these people become, in a feeling sense, they become real people, not just the ideation. But now I feel this guy. I see what you're saying. See, parents, we were like, you spend a lot of time doing plays. Yes, we do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't see how that's going to, well, that's why you're here, because we're teaching different than what they're doing over in public school. And that was the biggest issue. There's two issues. That was the biggest one. I'm not sure where this is going. You're right. But could your children do what they're doing now last year? Well, no. Okay. Uh, and didn't you tell me that your aunt was asking you for her children to figure out how can my children get to do, because they can't keep up with your children? And didn't that happen? Yeah. Okay, well, I know it doesn't look like what you're used to, but that's how we're producing that.
Mm-hmm.
But some people, it's very difficult for them to grasp that. So one. Next one is religious orientation. When people are very religious, so person comes in, I'm not teaching religion. That's not what I'm doing. And so people come in, and my wife and I were talking about this recently, where a woman came in, child was doing miserable in school. They were trying to keep the child back. Came over, she heard about our school. She comes over, we talked a long time. She's crying, boo-hooing about the situation, which was terrible. And she said, the only thing is, though, I hear that you all do all this stuff before class, which is, we do yoga and meditation and these things I told you. I said, yeah, we do all that as part of our educational system. She says, well, I don't know if I can bring my child. I have to ask my minister. Okay, you can do that, but how's your minister going to evaluate that? I mean, by what grounds? See, and so if it looked like something that was too foreign and weird looking, whether it be about being too black, that's an issue for people. Well, this is too black. Well, why we got to talk about racism? You get all that, right? Well, so these are the things that come up. And then the final one is just black people are crazy about money. It's crazy. And so, it takes money to run a school. And we can just look at our condition as a people, countrywide, and sometimes worldwide, and see that we haven't quite figured out that you have to have money or resources available to convert into whatever in order to be able to, be successful and do what you got to do, because people have to eat. And nobody's living off promises or pats on the back. Those things have their place, and they help encourage people to gain their own energy and use it. But at the end of the day, folks need shelter, they need food, things like that, and those things cost money. So then, people will argue. So, like, for example, I never asked my parents for any money for the actual facility, which I was personally paying out of my pocket. Because I had my children there, and I was going to have private school one way or the other because I had my children. And so I remember we had a big faculty meeting about, a parent meeting about some swings and things I was trying to get for the children. And then people come in and want to argue about several $100s. It's only $800 was the price for the whole kit. It's like, well, I don't know why we got to spend $800 and this and that, but it's like, well, they're your children. Do you want your children to have swings? Or I don't see what, well, actually, your fees that you're paying is barely paying enough for me to pay for my teachers, because I'm not going to let my teachers starve. But you're not paying for the actual facility. I'm paying that out of my pocket. I'm doing that monthly payment. I'm paying these taxes to the IRS, which I still owe some, by the way. I'm still paying, even though my school's closed now. But it's like if you don't run anything, you don't know what it takes to run anything. Right? And so that's the situation, that we have become indoctrinated to be so dependent on other people to do it, whether it's education, whether it's a store in the community, whether it's, one of my mentors, probably the most powerful elder for me in all of this, was Dr. John Henry Clark.
Yes.
And Dr. Clark basically gave me the understanding of do for self in a broad sense, like as a absolute necessity, not like you could if you think about it, or you could if you want to. But Dr. Clark would say, well, you're already sewing in somebody's factory. You already know how to sew. Where's your factory? One of the funniest moments I ever had was I used to go to this Chinese restaurant here in town all the time. And one time the door opened, and I thought I saw a black guy cooking, and I could not believe this can't be happening in a Chinese restaurant. So when the owner came by, which we talked all the time because I was there all the time, His name was Mr. Lin. Never forget. I said, Mr. Lin. I said, the door opened. I said, I thought I saw a black guy cooking. I said, Mr. Lin, do you have a black guy cooking Chinese food? He said, yeah, Dr. Denard. That was the funniest thing.
Oh my
But
God.
yeah, like you cooking the food. Like, where's your restaurant, bro? You see?
I got that
When I
feedback.
cooked, when I opened my restaurant, I cooked everybody's food. Louisiana, Jamaican,
Mhm.
Thai. I cook all that. Why not? You're already doing it. Why don't you have your own? There's nothing wrong with working for somebody else, but then where's yours though? In the end, where's yours? And then of course there's the whole issue of financial legacy that finally we're beginning to talk about it. Finally, people are starting to get it. This generation that we're with right now, this new one, they're like, they're on it. But look, man, it took us a while to get here because again, appreciate as a psychologist,
Mhm.
just appreciating when you say, well, what are the issues? Well, the issues are the psychology that you're dealing with and where we are in a psychological state. You know, I try to help people understand. You remember, of course, Hidden Figures, the movie.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I try to help people understand. I love it because it was such a great portrayal of so many things that we did not even get in the movie, but they were right there.
Mhm.
The idea that there were these three women, black women, who come out of nowhere somehow, who are smarter than all the white men in NASA. And so I ask my classes all the time, y'all see that movie? Yeah. Like, well, where did they get these three smart black women from? Okay. They start, oh, yeah, that's right. I said, well, they showed you in the film, it was illegal for the one of them to even go to school. It was illegal. She had to go in front of the judge just to go to take some classes. Where these smart women with all this knowledge, this science, this math and stuff, where they come from?
Mhm.
Nobody even thought about it. Okay, I said, well, hold up, back up. Go back to the movie. It wasn't three women, it was 33. Because they had a whole room full of black women. They called them calculators, remember?
Yeah.
They were doing all the calculations. Where did they get these smart black women from? I said, see, what you really missed was that was the norm for the black community. That's why they could find 33.
Hmm.
In under separate and unequal, and we get the books that are 5 years old now because it's got all the white kids that put their names in them before they ever get to my school. I mean, I grew up in that time, so I know. I grew up in separate and unequal and black and white, colored in white fountains and all that. And people were smart
Yeah.
and people were focused on, really high performance was the norm. It wasn't, you weren't exceptional. There would be no exceptional.
Hmm.
You just either got it or you didn't get it. And a lot of people got it. See, that's why they were able to find these people. But we don't know. When we were on our own, we didn't have any other comparisons other than against each other. And so we were like the Michael Jordans of our time.
Hmm.
Now Michael Jordan come out in front of the whole world on competing with everybody. He looks exceptional.
Mhm.
Now go out there right now on the basketball court. Now it's just normal for kids to perform like that. It's just normal. Right? But it was exceptional when it first showed up. So the problem is the comparison that we do is based on a false sense of reality. What my other mentor and friend and idol was Dr. Amos Wilson.
Mhm.
So if people are not aware of his text, Awakening the Natural Genius of Black Children, I highly recommend it. It's hard to find. Get you a copy though. And anything else that he's putting out and talking about, you might want to listen to this guy.
Mhm.
He did all this research on the psychological development of Black children, showing, okay, well, actually, separate and unequal was kind of working because um, what we don't start out the same way, operate at the same speed, learn at the same rate, walk at the same rate, talk. That's actually not true.
Hmm.
Those developmental scales that they use to say where you're supposed to be, that's based on white children, and white children are biologically behind black children.
Hmm.
See, Dr. Wilson used to say, you see, you started out ahead and then you ended up behind. And that's true if you look at the research. Right?
Yes.
So you set up earlier, several months, you were talking earlier, walking earlier, you were doing all this stuff earlier. And then you went 5 years old, you went to kindergarten, and now you're behind.
Wow.
And he would say, "You see, ladies and gentlemen, you have been made dumb." That's how he used to say that. We're dealing with the psychology of the dumbing down of human beings, which is why we have no education about who am I in the public school system. You
So,
know what I would do for my, go ahead.
no, what would you do? Because I think you're going to say exactly what I was going to ask you to say.
Maybe. So one of the issues, of course, is what we would call discipline issues in school, which is a big issue in the public school system.
Yeah.
But I go to this saying, who am I as a foundation for dealing with a lot of discipline issues? So with my children, even the ones that come from other schools, coming into my school, different environment,
Mm-hmm.
every year I would have a discussion with each new group, and every year with all of them, about the nature of being. Say, now you know, in life there is order and then there is chaos.
Mm-hmm.
Now, then we need to define what is order and what is chaos. You understand that we're all dealing with this order and chaos. I give these terms and these concepts, which, of course, from studying ancient Egyptian idea about function.
Mm-hmm.
Now I've given it to them. Now your job is to learn to impose order on your own chaos. Quite a task, but that's your job. Okay, I set them up like that. Now, here they running down the hallway. What you doing? Sir, did I tell you not to run? Yes, sir. Well, what are you doing right now? Oh, I'm running, sorry. Okay, who's in charge now? Are you imposing order or is chaos taking over? Chaos. What do you need to do? Get myself in order. That's right. No running. I ain't got to yell. I ain't got to scream. Now, maybe that doesn't work every time, but now this child is beginning to get the point. Because what are we doing by our reinforcement called discipline? What are we doing? We're trying to help this child learn to manage themselves. We can't manage them. You can't manage another human being's powers. Only they can do that in the end, or else we end up with jail and things like that. So, which, John Henry Clark reminds us there's no word for jail in African language. Wasn't necessary, right? Because such a vast education that included who am I as primary, as the basis, who am I? See? And so there's so much lacking in the public school system, what they're calling education. There's so much lacking in that. So that's what I want to get across.
Now, in closing, what would you say is the most important idea that you would like to communicate to people, families, parents who are interested in transforming the education for their child? And also, how can they contact you? And what kind of resources do you have available, courses, classes that could assist them on that journey?
Okay. So I would say there are two primary directions. They can be one or the other, or they can go together. The first one is, as a parent, you always are the primary educator. You demonstrate through your life to your children what it is that they need to learn. By the way you interact with them and the way that you live, they're watching you because they know that they don't know. We get to be adults, we forget that we don't know and think we know. But children know they don't know, which is why they're always asking you all those questions and looking and trying to figure out what everything's going on, right? And you want them to always stay that way, right? So the thing is that you can augment their education. A couple of things that are very important. First thing, definitely read to your child. Read to your child. Take out time to read to your child. Sit them down, take a book, read. That's one. Two, interpretation of reality. There's so much going on out here, especially through media, where children are being exposed to bizarre realities that they think are natural and normal that are actually crazy. So, when my children were growing up and they would watch some of these, and so you can't just take everything away from them and think that's going to do it. That didn't do it. You have to explain it. So, things would go on and stuff would be on TV, and I'd walk in the room and I would watch it for a second and say, now you see. And then I would break down the foolishness, and they learn how to do that too. See? So now they're adults. They can say, they send me videos now. Dad, have you seen this one yet? So that's the thing, is you have to be involved in the educational process, which means explaining reality and also the values that you're trying to get across. Sometimes children are not sure. Say, what'd your mom say about the fact that you didn't do your homework? Well, she didn't say anything. Maybe mom's thinking, I don't know what to say, maybe. Maybe she's thinking they'll take care of it at school. I don't know. The point is, mom's got to say, you will be doing your homework. Now the child gets, oh, this is important because she's all upset about it. We're not trying to be upset. No, you do want to be upset. You want to communicate your sincere, intense, emotional experience about life to your child. Okay. Number 3, diversity of experience expands intelligence and consciousness. Diversity of experience. There may be things you never thought about as a parent or you've never experienced as a parent, but it's available to you. All right, take your child places they've never been. Do it regularly. So take them down to the beach. So take them out into the woods. So take them down to the museum. So take them to the library, and so they can see what a library is like and get them the library. Take them to, like right now, I'm getting ready to take a trip. My birthday is coming up, so I decided for my birthday, I'm going to the ATL and go up here to this area, this new area they developed called Black Wall Street, and see what they did with it. Maybe it'll be a disappointment. I don't know. I haven't been yet. I'm about to find out. Right? So take little excursions. On Saturday, go to the park. On Saturday, go to the zoo. On Saturday, just take a little time to do something they've never done before. That is one of the greatest things that you can do for your child, so that they begin to experience more of life and become excited about all the things that they don't know and can learn about. And then finally, since they got these devices all the time, it's amazing. We have all these devices, I got this thing here, and I'm like, how could you not know? Like, how could you not? I'm in my college classroom, like, don't y'all know about? Okay, since you're on the phone anyway, texting some stupid stuff to your friend for a second, tell him I'll be right back. Go to Google and look up, And so what you can do with your children is you can tell them to look it up right now. Go, since they're on here, look it up. They're on TikTok. Okay, get off TikTok for a minute and go to Google this, Or even more importantly, you find things, oh, I want my child to see this. Okay, so it's on, because YouTube has all types of incredible information. Anything that I don't know about that I want to do, I go straight to YouTube and see, has anybody done it yet? Or is there anybody talking about it? Like, I grow food all the time, right? I ain't know nothing about, I got peach trees, don't even know anything about peach trees, right? So a weird thing happened. I had all these peaches. I got a zillion peaches. I don't know what to do. And so I know I'm supposed to prune these trees, but I don't know when, why, nothing. So I started looking up how to grow peaches the best way on YouTube. I learned so much about things I wasn't doing that I was supposed to be doing for my peach trees. So these are the things that I say parents can do right now. All of those things they can do right now. Okay. Now, finding me. Okay, I have a website, but if they can remember AAKET World, they can find me, because everything that I do is under AAKET World. So it's AAKHETWORLD, AAKET World, like that. So my website is aaketworld.com, and my YouTube channel is AAKET World. Now, also, I got this title a long time ago. Young people gave me the title because of my work in the community. They said, "You're the father of the entire community, including us that don't have fathers. So we're going to call you Baba from now on." And so I have another, I call my cultural name is Kamau, Kamau. So if they look up Baba Kamau,
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes that'll take them right to my YouTube channel also.
Awesome.
Most people call me Baba Kamau, they don't call me Dr. Dinard. That's my what they say, my government name, right? So people do know me by that name. In the academic world, they just know me by Dr. Dinard, but on the street, they say on the street, out here on the street, they just call me Baba Kamau. So any of those, and with our school was the Sakara Youth Institute.
Mhm.
So we have the Sakara Youth Institute online. So you can go to that website, or you can get to it through my website,
Mhm.
because I have on my website, I have a SYI page. And if you're on YouTube, if you put in SYI, there are several videos. Some of them are my children doing things. I probably need to put up more videos of people doing things. I've got two young people that are being taught right now, who their parents have agreed to let us, show what they're doing online, because that's a whole nother issue with rights and stuff. So, but and some of those are available to the public, and some aren't, because we also have this online academy where people can actually pay for if they want to get all these videos and the lessons for their children and stuff like that. We do have that also. My wife is actually putting some new ones up now. So one way or another through, and by the way, it's Sakkara, Sakkara. So it's Sakkara Youth Institute. So if they put that, even if they forget that they just put Sakkara Youth Institute, it'll take them to the website. Or if they just look for me, if they get on my website, then you'll see SYI in the menu up there, and then it can take you to, and there are a couple of videos, and I'm going to put up some more videos, just so people can see. It's kind of hard to describe. You have to see it.
Yes.
You'd have to see my 4-year-old girl that was the winner of the science contest at age 4 for her group, which was the pre-K scientists, because I had scientists at every age. So she was the winner for her group. And you have to see her presenting her science project, which, here in Leon County, they don't even require science projects anymore. See,
Whoa.
people must understand that no, they must understand that the intent right now is dumbing down. That is the intent. It cannot be argued.
Yeah.
They're talking now about what? They're not going to teach writing anymore. Like, you know how old, we can go all the way back to Egyptian culture and see what's called a scribe learning how to write properly, right? Now they're saying they're going to take script out of the school system. What? Why are you doing this?
Mm-mm-mm.
Have we ever asked the question? Like they took music out of the school system, like they took art out of the. Now they claim up in college that education is based on seven, liberal arts. It's called the liberal art tradition. That's true. It comes from the Egyptian into the Greeks and then to everybody else like that. Okay, well, 2 of the liberal arts are music and art. Okay, you just took those 2 out. Now you're doing 5, supposedly. I'm saying, but what was the purpose of music and art in the original curriculum? And see, I'm a neuropsychologist, so I know the purpose, and it is the development of the right side of the brain. That's why the right side of the brain can do jazz, left side can't do jazz. Left side can tell you A plus minus B, F sharp. That's the left side. It can tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't know what they sound like, but it can tell you what they are.
Mm-hmm.
But the right side is what knows, no, that don't fit. And so, therefore, what is jazz but the synthesis of melodies and dissonance? So, the right side of the brain takes all of this chaos and order and puts it together to make meaning of it in a way that you can actually function at your highest level.
Yeah.
So we can have children that hear stuff and can't use it to save their own lives. They're left brain, left brain, left brain. They can't use the right brain anymore.
Mhm.
See? And so we don't understand that there's a dumbing down process, period. That's the idea, right? And a lot of people don't know. Originally, the public school system was only for black people.
Hmm.
It was originally created so that slaves would get the technical skills to work for
Yeah.
white folks.
Mhm. Yeah.
Right? Now we're back. We're the public school system. Majority of children in the public school system, definitely here in Florida, are non-white children as they're dumbing down the school system.
To return it
Just a
back.
fact.
Yeah. Well, Baba Kamal, you have blessed us with so much wisdom. I thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're quite
And
welcome. I'm glad
encourage
to be a part of it.
I encourage anyone, please reach out to Baba Kamal. Like I said, I learned about him through the Sakara Institute. I saw the phenomenal work that was being done. I saw these actual children doing this stuff. And I've been an educator for over 25 years. So I know the phenomenal nature of what was accomplished there and what is now being offered to you through the online platform.
Right.
So with all of the craziness, there have been blessings, there have been openings. You now have an opportunity
Yes.
to access this phenomenal wisdom to be able to help your children, your grandchildren, your nieces, your nephews, whomever it is, yourself, right? And so we thank you on behalf of our community. I thank you for what you are doing. And I wish you peace and blessings in the upcoming years. And I look forward to seeing all the phenomenal things that you and your wife will continue to create. Thank you, everyone. And
Thank
remember
you.
to join us again.